Sit back and relax and listen to Dr. Jeanne Retief. She is a keynote speaker, a mental health advocate, and the founder of FIGGI Beauty based in Hamilton. This woman has got so much experience under her belt that you can't afford not to listen. Sit back and enjoy. So, Jeanne, do you want to start by telling us a little bit pre-2015?
Yeah.
And what got you to start in FIGGI skincare?
Yeah, so my PhD is in international laws of war and international human rights. Okay. So I worked in that field for 15 plus years. So I worked in the African development community. I worked a lot with gender and elections, rape as a method of warfare, enhanced interrogation techniques. So that was my love language. Mm-hmm. I really loved my career. And I built my own consultancy. It was super successful, but I had a lot of trauma from my past. I grew up with a lot of generational trauma, sexual abuse, a lot of undiagnosed mental illness in my family. And that kind of caught up with me later on. I always say it's so strange because the moment I broke was the happiest time in my life. Yeah. When I was the most secure, when I was the happiest in my career, I was happily married, I felt safe, I felt calm, and that's when my breaking happened. So
that was maybe for a reason?
Yeah,
because you felt that there was going to be someone there to catch you, whereas beforehand you would have struggled to get out the other side without that security maybe?
I think so, but I think it's also the running mindset. You've gotten to a point where you stopped running. Mm. And that keeps you going because that keeps all of the walls up and that keeps all of the fences in place. Yeah. And then when you let down those defenses, it's like the body remembers. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, so this happened, this happened, this happened. Okay. And then it kind of piles up, you know. So then I was diagnosed with panic disorder and complex post-traumatic stress. Okay. And I had the worst time accepting this diagnosis because I always say, and I say this with so much love and empathy because I live with panic disorder. I understand what it is. I understand how difficult it is. But I was diagnosed before it was cool to have anxiety, before everybody had anxiety. Mm-hmm. Right. It wasn't a thing. I didn't even know it existed. I was so mad at my doctors because I thought they were just telling me this because they didn't know what was wrong with me. Yeah. So I just mismanaged it completely for the longest time. I had a lot of shame around it. I didn't want anybody to know. I was running this consultancy. I didn't want anybody to think that I'm less than or I'm not as capable as all the other people that can be doing this job. And obviously that caught up with me. So in 2020, when we moved to Portugal, it just went downhill fast. I wasn't able to cope normally. I wasn't able to function normally. I was having rolling panic attacks. I had a stroke scare and I had to change my life. But it's important to remember, many people ask me, how did you do it? It's so brave to change careers so late in your life. What made you decide that? And for me, that's not how it was. I didn't choose it. I didn't want it. You don't do a PhD if you're not sure this is what you're going to be doing with your life. So it wasn't my choice. But I'm now looking back at it happy it happened. And that's basically how FIGGI came about. Okay. Because FIGGI is a skincare line for dry and sensitive skin. And people always ask, okay, well, what's the connection? You're coming from human rights and you're doing this. Yeah. But there's so much about panic disorder. There's so many symptoms. There's so much that you're not in control of. And I understand you can say, okay, control is, a myth, but there are many basic things about your body you're not in control of. Your mind you're not in control of. And one of my external symptoms was really sensitive skin because the mind affects the skin, the nerve endings. Okay. And I thought, well, this is something that I can maybe just have a little bit of control over. I can go back to school, do my certificate in cosmetic chemistry. That's going to take my mind off things. It's going to keep me busy. It's going to keep me focused. Yep. And then the line came about.
Okay.
Did you, at that point in time when you've decided to pursue this business, did you then leave your other job full time to go straight into this, or was there a kind of crossover period?
Yeah.
Or
It was a crossover period because I had ongoing projects that I still needed to finish. When we moved from South Africa to Portugal, the initial idea was for me to launch this consultancy in the EU as well. And I took on a partner, and she would run the African side of things. But then, of course, COVID happened, and I wasn't able to fly back and forth for the African side of it all. So we agreed that I would finish out the projects and I would only continue with passion projects, or if people specifically asked that I be part of the project. And so we kind of phased it out gently.
Okay.
But to be honest, I probably took longer to do that than I should have, because it was hard for me
To let go.
to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the conception of, is it FIGGI?
FIGGI.
FIGGI.
Yeah.
So the conception of FIGGI was more to do with how you were feeling internally and what had happened when you moved to Portugal.
That's correct, yeah, because there are so many symptoms to panic disorder.
Okay.
Sensitive skin is only one. So I
Right.
wanted to deal, first of all, with an external symptom. I wanted to be in a space where I didn't have to hide anymore, where I could take ownership of my diagnosis and not feel shame about it. Almost everything I did in my human rights career somehow went about project development and teaching courses and bringing life skills to those who needed it. So I could use all of that energy and that experience and create not just FIGGI as a skincare line, but as a community, because I already knew how to do that.
Okay.
And I could reach people that I connected with in a way where there was no more diplomatic red tape keeping me from having the practical outcomes. I'm not reliant on somebody's political agenda or budget. It's just straight to the source, basically. So that just kind of made holistic sense to me in that moment.
What about when... Actually, just lost my train of thought there. What I was going to say, it was a cracking question as well. What I was going to ask you there. I've just had a complete mind blank there. Apologies.
I'll jump in then. So when you were doing your chemistry, was it a PhD that you did in that? How long did that
Advanced
take?
certificate.
An
It
advanced
took
certificate.
2 years.
Okay.
And it was hard because I didn't have science at school. I had the lowest level of maths. Like, it's just not my forte. Languages are my forte. So I had the most beautiful math teacher in high school. And I remember when I was supposed to graduate high school, she called in my parents and she said, okay, let's just focus on what we can do to get her to pass. Don't even study the rest.
That's not starting on a negative at all.
Let's just focus on that. So I wasn't even sure I would be able to do it. And in itself, that brought about another beauty for me to go through that. I got the certificate with merit and distinction, which was for me amazing because it showed me that these things that you tell yourself you can't do and that you're not good at, maybe you can.
Yeah.
If you're in a different environment and you put yourself to the test.
It all comes down to that fear thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then listening to those voices. When you've been listening to those voices for so long, you just can't wake up one morning and flick a switch and go, oh, that voice is gone. I am great.
Yeah.
That was probably quite a pivotal moment, I would imagine, because I think when somebody tells you, especially in the world of entrepreneurship, when somebody tells you you can't do something, you're maybe not good at something, it actually, I think, has the reverse effect.
Yeah.
And you actually end up becoming,
Well,
it's almost...
I think it has both effects, doesn't it? You can either buy into the fact that what your voices is telling you, that you're rubbish at everything and you're not going to succeed and there's no way that you can achieve that, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the other bit that you can buy into, having that self-belief and going and taking the negative things that are getting said to you and turning it to, I'll show you,
Yeah.
But that takes a specific type of person to do that,
Yeah.
and again, it depends how long you've been getting told the other.
Yeah.
True.
I remember what I was going to say. The point of where you've been diagnosed, you've obviously had a bit of underlying trauma, as you said, and you were in this big corporate job. What do you think was the tipping point
Yeah.
Do you think, was it the corporate job that's kind of tipped, or do you think there was something that came from the underlying trauma? And what do you think was the, because you've obviously lived with that for all your life.
Yeah.
What do you think was the tipping point where something changed that you've then went and, seek help and been diagnosed?
Yeah.
So I wasn't really in a corporate space, right? So my
Okay.
consultancy was purely human rights focused.
Right, okay.
Which meant a lot of travel, a lot of staying in not great places.
Right.
So always that kind of underlying stress that comes with that.
Okay.
Minimal sleep, lots of high level projects. So I think this obviously added to a space where my body kind of maybe already felt like I'm at my limit, and I'm just kind of pasting on it all on top of that. So what actually happened was I was traveling for the South African elections. It was a national election. I was in charge of declaring whether the elections are free and fair and there was no interference and corruption. And I was very excited because I was supposed to attend the president's address the next day. I did everything I normally did, got on the plane, got off the plane, got to my hotel, started working, getting ready for the next day. And all of a sudden, I lost vision in my one eye. And then I had like black and purple spots in my left eye. And I thought, well, this is a little bit strange. Maybe I'm hungry. I wasn't looking after myself for the day. Then I started shaking all over. My right arm was shaking so badly. It was shaking from my knee up to my shoulder. I had to physically restrain it. Then I started losing feeling from my left knee all the way down. My toes started tingling. I started feeling like my throat was closing up and my tongue was swelling. The room started spinning around me. I had these intense heart palpitations. It felt like my heart was literally slamming out of my chest and slamming back in. So I was struggling to breathe. And I just thought I was having a stroke. So I phoned the hotel reception, such as it was, and asked for an ambulance, which was obviously not possible in the area I was in. So they sent somebody to my room to come and fetch me. And I just left everything. They had to help me dress. I was completely out of it.
That must have been terrifying.
It was really terrifying because I was a 1 hour flight away from home. So I can't contact my husband. I'm alone here in this space. They had to load me in one of their cars, and we drove around for probably more than an hour looking for a hospital.
Oh my God.
And this whole time I'm honestly going through these constant phases of, okay, I'm going to die now. This is my last breath, seeing your whole life flash in front of your eyes, the memories of the people you didn't speak to, the one thing I forgot to tell my husband, like he's going to not even know where my body is, all these things. Eventually we got to a hospital. They took me in after a whole to-do. Then they thought I was on some kind of drug. They thought I was high, and they kept on screaming at me, what did you take? What did you take? And I was trying to explain to them, I'm here for work. Can you just save my life, please? Because I remember there was this one nurse, and I just clutched onto her hand, and I just said to her, please don't leave me. Please don't let me die alone. I just don't want to die alone. And then I remember nothing. So I probably just passed out. The next morning I woke up in somebody else's blood in a hospital gown in a ward somewhere. I don't know how they figured it out. I think my husband must have started calling me and they picked up the phone. But he was there, so he just caught the first flight in the morning to come through. The neurologist saw me. He told me I needed more tests. And this is what you do when you don't want to acknowledge something. I got up. I got dressed. I got on a plane. I got off the plane, walked across the road into my next meeting, and I just went on with my day.
Oh my goodness.
And then I went home. We had people over for dinner. I cooked. I cleaned. Then I cried a little bit the Sunday, and the Monday I was supposed to go to a meeting, and it happened to me again. And that's the thing that launched it. Then I went for all the tests, and I was in hospital, and Like it was a week worth of tests. And then they finally diagnosed me with this. Yeah.
So when you've, as you said, went back and you walked basically straight to the next meeting, do you think, was that because you were personally trying to ignore what's happened and put a kind of blind eye to it? Or was there because there was the pressure of the type of role you were in, I need to attend this meeting and I can't let people down?
I think 30% of it was not wanting to accept it, because for me it felt like I already came from this family with all of this mental illness. If this is something that's to do with that, then I'm like them and I don't want to be like that. 70% of it is I was an entrepreneur. This is my consultancy. I made the commitment to these meetings. I created this women's task team, bringing all these people together. I made this meeting happen. So I don't have, and at that point, remember, I'd already missed the president's address. And so I already had to explain that. Obviously, people understood, because this is how your mind works, right? I phoned them from my hospital bed and my words were, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't make it. I'm just quickly in the emergency room." And they're like, "What?" Like, no, it's nothing. I'm sure it's nothing. But can you just excuse me? And in my mind, it was just like, well, I can't make another call like that. I need to get back up. I need to do what I need to do. And we'll worry about this later. But for now, I need to show up.
Yeah. I think there is definitely something to be said about, you know, if you go back to, which we talk about quite a lot, let's say like the schooling system, then the role that you were in would have been like somebody's dream job. You know, when you go through, you know, the ranks of school, university, that world. And at that point in time, you almost think that the role you would have been, you're invincible. But I think that people forget that entrepreneurs, business owners, they're all just normal people. You know, regardless of what job you do. You know, we're all going to have health scares. We're all going to, you know, experience, you know, not all, but, you know, what we experience what's happened to you. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs as well do forget themselves that they are just human beings. And there is essentially a tipping point where we're not all untouchable.
Correct, yeah. And
You know?
it's hard to say that to yourself, because I think that what also comes into that is you don't have that paycheck coming in.
Yes.
So when you don't show up, you don't get paid. And then there's also this fear of, okay, but if I don't show up this one time and I don't get paid this one time, what is the chance that they're going to see somebody else that was there that day and could take up that opportunity and could just step into my space? So I need to always be on point.
Yeah. No, definitely. We were discussing this in the car on the way over this morning, that I think, again, the world of entrepreneurship, the biggest pressure at most points in times is the financial pressure.
Yes.
But people, when they see you and maybe, you know, see you on some kind of pedestal, they think like the financial bit is taken care of. Like, it doesn't matter if you show up or not show up. But you're 100% correct. Then,
you know, it's so important what you're saying, because I did a podcast about 2 years ago, and it was a very high level business podcast. And the person who was interviewing me asked me, do I think I am under such an amount of pressure or stress as an entrepreneur just because I may not be honest with myself in accepting that I don't like delegating? And if I delegated more and had more people helping with different things, it would be better. But it comes back to that financial pressure, right? When you're an entrepreneur being scrappy in the beginning, there's no such thing as delegating. You are the person you're delegating
Exactly.
to.
Yes.
You are the admin, you're the marketer, you're the, you know, project manager. Like, there's no budget for having all these wonderful people you can delegate these things to.
yeah.
The pressure is incredible.
It is, because it is on your shoulders.
I mean, I just came back from the US. I mean, we just withdrew from the US. It was a brutal moment for me. I lost upwards of $300,000. And if I look back on it and I put everything on paper, sometimes business just doesn't work out because it wasn't the right time, it wasn't the right space. But to you, it's hard to see it that way. You feel like a failure. You feel like you did it wrong. You lost the soul. You didn't make the right decisions. You didn't try hard enough. It's hard. The financial pressure is such a reality. And I think in the business space, in the entrepreneurial space, we don't speak about it. You have all of these wonderful books written by all these billionaires, and they have 2 pages in a 500-page book that tells you, oh, I struggled in the beginning in my garage days, and I was living with my mom, but now I'm a billionaire. But those days in the
happened in a
garage are
fortnight.
the worst.
Yeah.
They are the most brutal.
Yeah.
You are honestly always worrying, where is the next payment coming from? Who am I trusting and not trusting? What do I
Yeah.
still need to learn more? It's hard to be in that space. And we gloss over that. And I think it's such an injustice to others that are coming into this space, because I think that conversation is part of what makes them feel inferior and lesser and more stressed, because they see this glowing picture and think, oh, well, how come everybody else can do it,
Yeah.
but I can't do it? I'm experiencing this differently.
Exactly. I mean, and I, even in the world of property that we're in, when we were first started, everybody recommends all these different books, and you go and buy all these different books, and
Yeah.
I think I haven't managed to get past chapter 2 in any of them. And then you go, right, that's not working. Let me buy the audio one. And then
Yeah.
you think, how often am I in the car to listen to an audio one? And when you're listening to an audio one, you need to be engaged. So
Yeah.
it's not, and then you try and multitask, because then you think, I'll listen to my audio one, but I'll also just go and put on this washing, because I've also
Yeah.
got to go and to Asda and get the dinner. And what are we having, tomorrow for dinner? And all those things are going on through your head all the time. And you just think, how do you read all these books?
There's definitely something to be said about the. Listen, as we discussed before the recording, I think there's no better time to be alive than to discuss mental health. It's so it can be freely spoke about just now. However, with that comes a million self-help books.
Yes.
Right? And what ones do I choose and what ones do I not choose?
Exactly.
However, regardless of whatever, whether it's motivational or mental health, whatever, the reality is you can read all the books you want, but unless you get off your backside and actually, apply.
Yes.
All the knowledge isn't going to do anything, which is why obviously you do have a good education behind you. But you speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of them
I've had
don't.
no education,
They lot of them don't. But the
Or-
difference is,
yeah.
is they've just done something about it.
Yeah.
But
And there's different aspects to that as well, because I'm a different age from Alan. He started his entrepreneurship, at a semi-decent age, and I'm starting it at 55 and thinking I'm under even more pressure, because one, I've not got a lot of time to arse around, for want of a better expression, so I've got to hit the ground running. I've got to learn everything that I need to learn, and then what is it I'm needing to learn? What bits am I needing to concentrate on more? So you think you're constantly I just feel like every day I'm constantly chasing my tail,
yeah,
I can definitely
because of that
associate with
added
that.
pressure of being that little bit older, and
Yeah.
not having exactly the same amount of time ahead of me to get it all right or wrong, or
And that
be
comparison
successful.
that you always feel, right? So I was telling you a little bit about my husband before our recording. And he was one of those people who, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this podcast.
you can say whatever you
Whatever
want in
you
this
want.
podcast.
We're in a safe
It's
space.
unfiltered, it's unedited. So
He's one of those that scraped on his ass through university, okay?
Yeah.
He did that degree that's kind of a degree, you think? The one who never studied and bummed all the notes off everybody. I was the one that was always in the front seat of the class.
Yeah.
And I
Taking
had
notes.
like a whole calendar on my wall mapping out my exams and what I would study when, and
My goodness, super organised.
so organized. And I did the PhD and I was in the academic sphere. And now I'm 40 and I'm thinking I had to start over essentially from that career. It's hard to go into a new direction. And you're seeing this person that didn't do all the right steps in all the right checkbox ways, and he is just soaring.
Yeah.
Which you see from the outside, right? But
Yeah.
from the inside, you also now understand, as we said, the stress that comes with that and all of that. And it's hard to not feel inferior. It's hard to not feel like there's pressure on you to perform more, especially because I'm not starting at 30 or
Yeah.
32, and we just took such different routes to it, and you're constantly then finding yourself in a space where you can't help but compare yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
The worst thing that you can do.
exactly.
I think that's also a very good comparison for anybody that's listening, to show that, you know, you yourself and your husband have both been very, very successful from two completely different routes.
paths.
Yeah.
As you said, you're the one that studied and paid attention, and he's not. I think for anybody listening, that's also good to hear, because you can still make something either or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just because if you've maybe not had the best of background, and you've not really stuck in, doesn't mean to say game over. Sometimes actually that it puts you on more, because your husband probably had no other option
Correct.
than succeed. Because if he's not had the education behind him, if he's wanted to do something with his life, he's had no other option but make it happen.
I think
Correct.
as well, though, about education, though, that they skip over the people that aren't the academic, sitting in the front of the class, taking all the notes, making all the plans. And sometimes they're real successful, like, not saying that we're not successful, but they're ones that seem to be doing even better are the ones who haven't had that education.
The underdog.
The underdog, yeah. But
Yeah.
they seem to have a different set of skills.
Yeah.
Do they have a different set of skills, though? Or have they just been hungrier, more desperate?
Their mind works
Their
differently.
mind works
Yeah.
different.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because not every business opportunity seeks the same mindset.
Yeah.
For him, this is perfect. And he has just always been, as long as I've known him. I mean, I met him when I was 20. I was with him through the varsity days. And as long as I've known him, he's always been this dreamer. He just has this way of seeing things in his mind play out and all the steps you need to take. Like, he can see 3 outcomes way before anybody have even thought about it. So his mind just works differently.
Yeah.
And that allows him to do it in such a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mind doesn't work like that. I would absolutely be more of a stressed out mess if I than I already am if I were to work like that. But it works for him, and that's okay.
Yeah. How we mentioned before the recording that also your husband is successful in his own right, but having 2 entrepreneurs in the household, how's your relationship panned out? Because I imagine if there's, you know, travelling involved and you're not always together, and, you know, generally there's one entrepreneur in the house and the other one is kind of supporting the entrepreneur, but if the two of you are both, and have been from a young age, on that journey together, how is it? Has it had any effect in the household, or have the two of you always been able to support each other on your individual journeys?
I think what helps a lot having 2 people in that type of work in a marriage is the depth of understanding you have for the other person's stress, because you really understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
And it gives you that kind of mindset where it's easier to let the small things slide
Yeah.
because you're more in tune to why this
Why the
outburst
small
maybe
things
happened.
Yeah.
But also, I would say, obviously, it takes a lot of work. And for my husband and I, you know, it's not just the businesses. We also have to daily deal with my diagnosis, which has daily effects on our life. We have a 7-year-old daughter. We both travel a lot. So for us, it's just the key for us is organizing our marriage like a business. And I know that sounds very unromantic,
No,
but
I understand.
it's actually beautiful in its simplicity, because it's just like any business team. We both bring different strengths to this business.
Yeah.
We both have different responsibilities. We both have each other's backs when the other one is not able to do whatever you need to do that day. Everything goes on a Google Calendar. The absolute rule is whoever booked their travel first on the calendar If you were late in that, there's no judgment about it. You know the rules. This is how we do it. If it's not on the calendar and whoever forgot to put it on the calendar, that's on you, buddy. Like, you know,
Brilliant.
I'm free. So every Sunday we have a sit down, a safe space where we talk about what went well for us this week, what we think could have gone better. It's not a you did this, I did that. It's a super safe space. And we plan the week. Okay, so I've got Lily on Monday. I can't do it on Tuesday. Can you take her? And we sit and we map out our calendars. So the communication is always about these things crystal clear. Who's traveling when? We have rules about travel. We're not, unless it's an urgent emergency, we don't travel at the same time. And if we do travel at the same time, we make sure that we're both away at the same time. So I would be in the UK, he would be in China, we're home the same time.
Right.
If we don't have somebody to look after my daughter, somebody stays with her. And then we will always plan like a weekend together or something to make up for the time we've lost together. So it's hard work.
Yeah.
But if you're already adapt to running a business this way, just translating that into your relationship, for us, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the most important word I took out what you said there is communication.
Yes.
And I think that's where there's a lot of relationships that maybe fail because they're not having that upfront. These are the rules, and here is what I expect from a communication point of view.
And responsibility.
Yes.
Because people don't want to take responsibility, right? So if it's your mistake, it's easier to go like make a whole big deal about that rather than say, wow, this really sucks for me, but it's,
It's
you
on
know,
me.
I made the mistake. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important point because we talk about this quite a lot, and I'm the same in business. Any of business relationships that I have, I treat them the exact same way as a personal
Yeah.
relationship in terms of strengths and weaknesses. So it's literally, it's the same as what you've said, just the kind of opposite. And the two of them are very, very important and go hand in hand. So where are you based? I know you're a lot of travelling, but where are you based?
So I live in Portugal.
Okay.
And we have our FIGGI store here in Hamilton. And our online shop is here. So the business is based in the UK. I am personally based in Portugal.
Okay.
And I'm here every month.
So where did Hamilton become the destination for the shop?
Yeah.
From Portugal to Hamilton.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So I met the beautiful Emma, which is a shining example of having good business relationships and treating it just like you would personal relationships. So Emma and I met, and she actually came on board to help me with some social media things because, as we discussed, we're not social media savvy. And I mean, I just fell in love with her, and it was just the perfect thing. You know, she had such a great respect for the brand and where it came from and what the story is. Always had the same vision as I did. And then this shop opportunity just came to us out of nowhere this year, and we're like, well,
Yeah,
then
it's such a lovely space as well.
let's do it.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of getting invited over, so it's a lovely, calm environment, and it's quite homely. You know,
Oh, thank you so much. That's what we were hoping for with the space. So.
it's
Yeah.
exactly what I imagined. You know, we talked about having the community that you're talking about doing, and having a safe space for people to come who are having like mini meltdowns or struggling with small or large things, and it's exactly the type of space that would make you go from a super excited, out of control feeling to a nice calm interior again.
Oh, I love that.
It
Thank
is,
you
it's
so
lovely.
much.
Lynn showed me the photographs, and actually I thought to myself, that would be a great setting for filming the
For a
podcast.
podcast.
Actually,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
it was
welcome.
a really, really nice setting.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I actually thought about it, and I've mentioned it to Gillian because she'd said, is there any way that you can do it mobile?
Yeah.
And they can do a mobile podcast, so they could come to Hamilton and
Can maybe
and
do
it
that
there.
in the future and promote the
you're-
brand.
Yeah.
You're so
Yeah.
welcome. We have also a really nice gift for your audience that I
Okay.
can tell you about
Fabulous.
later.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what I was going to say. Talk to us about the FIGGI branding. So where are you just now? Where is the direction of travel for the brand? Where do you see the brand in, let's say, a couple of years' time?
Yeah. So now we are focused on the UK and to some degree the EU. We have this beautiful shop, this space that we've just continued growing, really. And we're going to be offering FIGGI signature facials come July. We offer Reiki sessions. We just host beautiful events there. We had an event there last night, a calming circle, where just this beautiful group of ladies that came, and we just had a moment of calm and just reflecting. And they get to interact with the products. So I hope that we can grow that even more. But my long-term goal for FIGGI is for it to be the absolute go-to product for luxury sensitive skincare with purpose.
Okay.
That there always be this community of people that is connected to it, away from self-help and miracle cures and golden tickets to everything. It's just real, and it's just raw, and it's okay not to be okay here. Because life happens, and that's ultimately our goal for it. I've always told Emma that I see ourselves in the absolute retroist 50 styles pink office with pink telephones. And these beautiful ladies all sitting there by the phones go, FIGGI, good morning.
Sounds amazing.
So
Sorry, it's actually just gone. I've done you. So carry on.
well, I'll go for it. So in terms of for anybody that's kind of listening, so a lot of people who want to start a business and they've got the idea, but then the hardest part is how do you then make that vision into reality? So you've then had this idea, but the products need to be manufactured, distributed. How did that part become about? So you've got the vision, but how did you turn it into reality?
The only way to do that is to work hard and be scrappy. The first thing you need to absolutely let go of, which so many young entrepreneurs have this vision of these days, is I want to start something. Okay, I need a CFO. I need a marketing assistant. You don't. You are the CFO. You are the marketing assistant. And whatever you don't know, you need to learn fast. And we live in this age of AI that can help you with so many things. I mean, I came from a service-based industry, never dealing with products at all. So literally everything about this business was new to me. I didn't know how to formulate. I had to go back to school to do that. So I had to sit down and map out a plan for myself. If this is what I want, and if I want to be in charge of what is in the products, I'm actually making the products, what do I need to do? Well, I need to understand how to formulate. How am I going to do that? Okay, I need to study, which is my time I'm giving up. I need to rearrange that around my family and my schedule and the business I was still running. After I've done that, what do I need next? I need to research how do you even manufacture a product? Are there rules? Are there regulations, legalities? I mean, it took me upwards of 2.5 years just to get FIGGI going, because I had to learn all these things. I had to educate myself on things like the European regulations. How does shipping work? How does international taxes work? How do I open an international business? And many of these things, you start on it, you're halfway through, you've spent the money, and then you go like, oh, I needed this, which is going to cost me even more because now I've made this mistake. But that's also how you learn. So the only way to start is to sit down, figure out what it is that you want to do, and then work backwards thinking about everything that you need. And then you got to do it. You got to put in the time. You've got to take the suffering that comes with that. And you just have to figure it out.
And the financial backing that you would have required for that. So when there's a surprise halfway along that road, how did you cope with that?
So I also did not take on any loans. I didn't take on any investors because I didn't want to be committed to somebody in terms of shares. But I also didn't want the stress of owing somebody else money or using their money to do something. So I used my savings, which was a risk because this is money that I can spend towards my daughter's education, towards our retirement, but again, that's part of being an entrepreneur. First of all, can you take the risk? Second of all, are you willing to take the risk, knowing that you can very well lose this? And how will you cope with it if and when it does turn out like that? What are your contingency plans to go around that. I'm not saying it's bad to take out a loan if you can. I'm not saying it's bad to take on an investor. I personally just didn't want to go that route, and I had savings that I could lean on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is the advantages and disadvantages there. Yeah, that you say the advantage is you didn't have to take an investor on, but the disadvantage is you would have had more to lose
Yeah.
had it go wrong.
Because
so there's
it's
a bigger
all
risk.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, again, like planning. Like, I didn't just go into this business and, I have these savings and I'm just going to use it. No, that came from years of working in my consultancy, putting away money, not going on expensive holidays when all of our friends were taking pictures on yachts, not buying expensive cars, not going to designer grocery stores. That came from years and years and years of that. That's why I had those savings. So it's not like it just like fell into my lap and I had it. It's all careful planning and years of commitment.
I think that's a really important point to note there, is that I think there's a lot of people who have it in them to do something more, and the reason they don't is because they're not prepared to do what you've just said there. They're not prepared to scale back their lifestyle because they're too interested on what does my neighbour think of what car I'm driving, right? Oh, my friends need to, the world we're in on Instagram, is it Instagrammable, right? Is the holiday on Instagram, whatever. All that stuff that people are putting their time and energy and more money into is actually scaling their lifestyle back the way, instead of actually going forward. Whereas if you can just take your pride for a couple of years, scale it all the way back, treat your personal lifestyle like you would in your own business with a set of management accounts. What can I get rid of? What can I scale that? What subscriptions can I get rid of? Do I really need that? That get rid of it, right? And use that to go forward, which a lot of people are not willing to do. And if they just done that, long term, they would actually have a much better lifestyle.
And it teaches you so much wisdom in being frugal, because you realize, first of all, the things you don't need and you can for sure do without. And it teaches you to be creative because you don't have that backing to lean on. So how can I be as smart and creative with the money I do have as possible? What do I put where? I'm 40. I've never had a credit card, ever. So the first credit card we got was 2 months ago, and we had the worst time because I have zero credit record because I just my whole life refused to get a credit card. Like everything we've always done, we don't have loans, we don't have debt. Everything we set aside and waited. Okay, we'd rather wait until we have the cash to do it. We'd rather go without. But that's a conscious decision you make, and that's not easy for everybody to do. And I completely respect that, but that's the route we went, and that was okay for us because both my husband and I, we didn't come from rich upbringing. We didn't come from money. So whatever we had that was way less and that we were willing to forego was already so much better than what we grew up with. So it made that mindset maybe a little bit different to us.
Yeah.
It's amazing how when you sit and listen to other people and the journeys that they've been on, you go, how many mistakes have I made? Or wrong decisions have I made in my life? And here I am,
Yeah.
Because it is true. It's all, your whole life is based on decision making, and it's going to go one way or the other. And it's the same now where even because mental health has become such a big thing in the world, especially during COVID. I think we talk about it. It was highlighted a lot more since we went through that. The amount of young people who still aren't investing in the right things. They're investing in fashion. They're investing in fancy cars. They're investing in, I want to look like my pal, or I want
Quick
to
gains.
do this. Yeah, quick gains. Whereas, we took more time investing in our internal, we'd all feel a lot better,
Yeah.
It'd be quite good if we could educate them and try to do that.
I know. In fact, I can't remember his name actually. You might know who he is. Bernard, forget his surname. One of the richest men in the world, owns all the designer brands, Moe, D&G, etc. Owns all the big brands. Right. And I watched an interview with him, and they said, how did you get so rich? And he said, I've spent my life getting rich by making other people look rich. So all the people who have went in that don't have a lot of money and they're buying all the designer brands, they're spending their life
They've made him rich.
looking rich, when in turns actually getting him rich, and he's not caring what he's wearing.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people are doing this, especially the designer brands, etc. Back to the social media. Earlier on, you mentioned about the delegating back at the start. How do you manage delegating now as the company grows and you have staff? Are you still keeping that element of control, or have you let go of the reins a wee bit to allow the delegation?
I think, but this is my opinion. So the people that work on my team might see it differently, right? So I think I'm pretty okay with that, because when I was in my human rights career, one of the main things that I did was help nonprofit organizations with high-performing teams. So I was accredited in different Balbin team roles, and it teaches you the strengths of the teams and how to draw on other people's strengths when you need it most. So I understand the psychology behind that. And with my panic disorder diagnosis, one of the key things is I have to listen to my limitations. I can't afford to be shy about my limitations or judge myself about the limitations, because when I don't listen to it, I'm out for 2 weeks, and that costs me more stress. So I have to absolutely have that definite no, this is going beyond what I can handle right now. And that kind of education helps me with it a lot, because I'm able to understand that, you know, this person in my team is way better at marketing and marketing plans and social media than I will ever be. So I'm just not even gonna
Waste time learning.
It's okay for me. Yeah, I feel like every entrepreneur should at least know the foundations of every single part of their business, so that they are capable of asking the right questions when the hard questions need to be asked.
Right.
But it's essential that you have people on your team that are smarter than you, so that they are able to give you the meat of that kind of question you're asking, the whole like clear view of it, right? So in that sense, I think I do okay with delegation. Looking at Emma, it's like
Tell the truth now.
She seems happy.
that's good.
Yeah. How many staff do you have on the team?
It's me, and then it's Emma, and we have a whole bunch of consultants that work for us. But I honestly feel like the stage where you have this permanent base of employees, I think we've passed that.
Yeah.
For many reasons. People don't want to work that way anymore. They all want to do their own thing. They all want to have some kind of freedom in their day, especially women. That we're, I think, seeing women going back to a space where they want to take ownership of, yes, I do want to get pregnant, and I do want to be a mom, and I do want to be there for and I don't want to be judged about it, and I do want to have free time. So I just don't think from an employee's perspective, that's what everybody wants and needs right now. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, just budget-wise and staying on top of the curve as much as you can, especially in a brutal industry like the beauty industry, you have to be scrappy, and you have to understand how to creatively work with the money that you have.
Yeah.
Building relationships with these consultants, because everybody can help everybody. Yes, I pay you a consultancy fee to do something for me, but you can come into my store for free, and I will give you a recommendation. I'll give you free stuff for your audience. I'll let you film, and next time you help me again. So that's our basis of working, and I think that's how I plan to keep it for the foreseeable future.
I think that sounds like a good plan, in my opinion, because go back to the first point you made, of what employees are looking for. Then the world has changed, especially since post-COVID. And as much as, let's be honest, the majority of people do want to work, they do want to put a shift in, then as you say, it's all right to, whether you are a single individual or somebody with a big family, whatever it is that you do in your own time is still important to you. And as you say, it is okay to say, no, I want to have a family, I want to have kids, and be respectful to your employer's time and your time as well, because you know, with a lot of employers, it's more the kind of what happens in their time is most important. But I think it's very, what you said, is respectful for
Yeah.
both parties. As long as they get what they want and you get what you want, then everybody's winning. I'd be quite interested to hear your points. Obviously, you've came from a kind of political background, okay, and then transpiring that into business. And you know, if you said you're looking in the you said you pulled out of the US, UK business, in the EU, and dealing with how everybody operates. Where does those political views transpire into business? Because the businesses are going to operate differently in different countries. I mean, what was the reason for coming out of the US?
A couple of reasons. The first and the most intense one was that I wasn't able to be there all the time. So every time I needed to go and do work there, it's between 8 and 18 hours of travel for me, with between 5 and 8 hours of time difference. So I was at a point last year where I was back and forth to the States from Portugal 5 times a month.
Wow.
Every time with a time difference.
Okay.
Like sometimes I would leave on the Saturday, be in Miami for the Sunday and the Monday, fly back on the Monday evening, see my daughter off to school on the Tuesday, fly out on the Tuesday evening to New York. So it was just...
Not sustainable.
It was literally sucking all of the energy out of me that I needed to make this business work, because I was operating on minus 100% energy. Second, with me not being there, is there are no roots. How do you get somebody to buy into a product and an idea if you are not there to advocate for it? You know, and the third is the US market is a very complex market. It's basically 50 countries in one.
Yeah.
Every state has its own thing and its own culture and its own, you know, kind of niche toward what they gravitate towards in the beauty space. So how do you map that out if you already have this travel distance issue? Then the buyer's market is different there. Everything, and this is just in my opinion, right? So I don't mean to offend anybody or any of your audience in the States. This was just my opinion. There's a very big rise in the US towards off-price retail. So things like TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Ross. And I started noticing also it's very rare that you would go there unless you're going to like Saks Fifth Avenue on the, you know, Upper East Side or Rodeo Drive or something really upper class like that. Most malls you would go to would consist of all of these off-price retailers. And the buyer is looking solely for a bargain.
Yep.
Once they get the bargain, they want even more discount. Then they want to try a sample. Then they want another sample. Then they want to think about it. So there's this hurdle, and you already have such a delicate kind of rope that you need to walk in the beauty industry on your margins and your profit. So taking that knock is brutal. And it just is not the same in the UK and the EU. Here, the mindset of the buyer is different. It's more no nonsense. Like, I have all of these other things going on in my life. I want this product. I'm buying this product. I'm done.
Yep.
Right.
It's not the whole looking and waiting and testing and trying and having like 10 different cards with 10 different discounts that you're trying to figure out what would be the best deal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm not putting that down in any way. It's just the realities of different buyer mindsets.
Yeah.
Add to that then also the current trade unrest. And it becomes even more difficult.
Yes.
Can you ship? Can't you ship? Are you paying customs? Are you not? Are you paying tariffs? How much tariffs? Is it 20? Is it 30%? Is it 45? Is it 105?
Yeah.
I don't know, you know. So are my products clearing when they land? Are they being stuck? How much more should I budget for warehousing? You know, how is this going to affect my consumer? Because am I going to have to put the price up, which is not going to be great for a market that prefers off price. So it was the amalgamation of all of this that led to the final decision. And to be completely honest with you, that was a harsh mistake on my side because I should have made this decision a year ago. But because I didn't want to have that feeling of I failed, I've lost all of this, I didn't do everything the right way, I should have tried harder. You keep going and you keep going and you keep milking that, rock that you're trying to get some water out of.
Yeah.
And now I have to take responsibility for those decisions that I've made, while still trying to be kind to myself and thinking, you know what, I did my absolute best that I was able to do in that space, and grieving the loss of that phase of my business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's lessons learned. I think one of the lessons that I've learned is that, I don't know if it's a way of sugarcoating a mistake, but you look at it as it's, you learn and you move forward, as opposed to focusing on the fact that you've made a huge mistake and it's been terrible, and you're actually making yourself feel worse about it. So whether it's a sugarcoating mechanism to make you feel better or not, I still think it's quite a good way to look at it, is that, you tried.
Yeah.
This didn't work. Just move forward.
It's taking the emotions out of the analytics, right?
Yeah.
Because those are two separate things.
Yeah.
The way you feel about it and what it says on paper. And it's hard to make that kind of differentiation sometimes, because I think when you're an entrepreneur, the emotions are so tied to the analytics and the other way around, but when you start to think about it that way and you're thinking, okay, well, the longer I stay, if I map it all out, this is what it's costing me per month. This is what I'm losing per month, because I'm not able to make peace with the emotions of what has happened here.
I think that's important to note, because I think sometimes you can't. It's easier for the outsider looking in. It's easier for me to look into your business to see that, and you to look into mine.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, in your business, you have the emotional attachment. As you say, from an outsider to come in saying, all right, just cut that. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But when you're in it and you have that emotional attachment, and it's hard actually to navigate, because that's what you almost get told in an entrepreneur is don't get that emotional attachment.
Yeah.
But when you're in it and it's yours, it's almost hard to not.
You can't not. I
Have
think
the
it's very
emotional-
difficult to not be emotional about
It's
it.
hard to not take it personally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And we don't put value in ourselves as entrepreneurs. We put ourselves on the last piece of the totem pole, and something that helped me with that immensely is to figure out what's my hourly rate, and to compute that in everything I do. So I've had to do some admin. For example, this morning I had to go buy groceries. I had to stand in the queue at the DMV. Okay, so this cost me so much because I lost 3 hours of work. The same with making this decision about the business. Okay, so today I literally spent 4 hours stressing about the fact that this is not working and trying different ways to do it. So I've lost that 4 hours of income, plus the opportunities that I could have been spending that time on pursuing in the markets that do work.
Yeah.
And then when you write it down like that, it helps me to then move more to the logical space of things.
Yeah.
And I've also learned that, and this may be because we really honestly have such a supportive relationship in my marriage, but to stress about the analytics of that when I'm in the office, and to come home to a safe landing space when I'm at home, and to cry it out. Let's not talk about the finances. Let's not talk about the business side of it. Let's just cry for what we've lost here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's okay. I know how I feel. Yeah, this sucks. Let's drink a beer. It's fine.
Yeah. I think it is important what you said, and it's not often there is two entrepreneurs in the household, because
Who understand how you're feeling.
Yeah, it's really important,
They totally
because
get it.
you may have a partner who's not in that world, and they may be supportive, but unless you're actually in it, like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't understand. They may say they understand and may support you in everything they can possibly do within those constraints, but unless you've actually been in that world, then you don't really understand what it's like. So having that dynamic in the household, I imagine, would be very, very supportive, because both partners will understand what each other is going through, the highs and the lows. I was going to ask you, in terms of the decision making, how strong are you in decision making? Are you quite adamant when you've got a decision to make, you're making the decision, or do you seek advice from anybody before making any decisions?
I am horrible horrible at making decisions.
Emma was
Horrible.
smirking in the background here. I'm like, oh, we've hit a nerve here.
No, I'm way too in my mind about things like that. I think about something, then I think about it again, then I think about it some more, then I ask an opinion. And I mean, I would be the first to say that that's probably one of my weaknesses as an entrepreneur, because sometimes you do need to make fast decisions and you do need to take the gamble.
Yeah.
And you know, that just comes from my way of being. I like safety, security, knowing exactly what's going to happen when. And that's just not the way. Like, being an entrepreneur is being like a professional gambler. That's literally what you do every day. You take a gamble on something. You make hard decisions. How many decisions do you make on a daily basis?
Hundreds.
Exactly.
Hundreds.
Exactly. So you cannot think through every single one.
Yeah.
It drives you nuts, which is probably why I am a little nuts. But then again, you lean on your team. For example, Emma is absolutely amazing at really reading people and understanding if they are a good or fit or not. And if I find myself in this musing, she's a wonderful person to defer to say, okay, what do I do here? Again, I have the added benefit of having my husband in the team, and most of the things that I'm struggling with, he's been through 3 times over. And we have, apart from this Sunday, a weekly business meeting with him and his assistant, and I throw these decisions at him, and I would just straight out say, okay, this is a JM decision, so I need you to just tell me what to do. Is it a yes or a no? Okay, cool, it's a yes. Some are easier to do as you practice it more. But no, that's not one of my strengths. And that's why I have people in my team that can help me with that. Because I know I'm not good at that.
Yeah. I love that phrase that you just said there, being a professional gambler. Because it literally just sums it up.
It does, absolutely. There's so many decisions that you make in a day, and you panic in case you've made the wrong one. Then you're lying in your bed at night sweating, thinking, oh my God, was that the right one or the wrong one?
And then when somebody in your family or your immediate family doesn't understand when you go out to dinner, like, can you just decide?
Yeah.
I've decided a million things today, just you choose.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because I say that to Grant quite often, because he'll go, what are we having for dinner? And I'll go, can somebody else just make that decision for me? Because I genuinely don't have it in me tonight
I know.
to make a decision on anything.
I know. I feel sometimes this is of a bad trait, but I find sometimes I can become a wee bit sharp with people, because see, when you said you've made a lot of big decisions, and you just said they're all gambles, right? You don't know what's going to work and what's going to not. And see, when you've dealt with that level of intensity, and then somebody asks you like a stupid question, right? Somebody asked me the other week, right? How long should I boil penny pasta for, right? And I could feel my blood boiling, right? Exactly. Like, see if that is the top priority today. Like,
In your day.
Open the back. It tells you the instructions. Why are you asking me, right? Like, the decisions I've made today and the risks that I've taken, I don't even know if I'm going to get paid at the end of the month, right? You're asking me a question like that, going to just like, but yeah, but afterwards, I mean, I feel quite bad, because why did I get so annoyed at that and so angry about that? Like, but you know, the pressure that you put yourself under, sometimes you do end up cracks appearing.
Yeah, the
elsewhere.
exact same thing happened yesterday with my daughter. She was staying with my sister for a couple of days and decided she wanted to come home a day earlier than planned. And she texted me to ask my sister if she could come home. And I'm like, oh my God,
Do
I'm
it
doing
yourself.
100 things here. Genuinely, you know, you don't miss me and hit the wall when you want something done. Auntie Ro is not the difficult person to have a conversation with. Just say, is there any chance I could go home tonight, Auntie Ro?
Yeah.
And she went, I can't. I've got anxiety around it. I'm like, oh my days.
I think as well, that's a good point to note, that it's you never know what somebody else is going through.
Exactly.
You never know.
Exactly.
I think it's always important to, whether you're in the supermarket and you're polite to the person at the checkout, or you hold the door for somebody.
Exactly.
That can make a big difference to their day, as it can do ours when you receive it, because you never know the trauma that somebody's going through, and they may present excellent, and maybe somebody you know, but you never actually know what's going on.
I've got a story that actually it's I don't know if I should share it or not, but anyway, I will anyway. So a prime example of that was, I've been in customer services for a long time, And I remember when we came back from America, sadly we had lost our daughter. And in the transit, we had picked a nice dress for her travelling home in our little bed. And unfortunately, when she arrived at the funeral home, they phoned to say, with the pressures in the aircraft, we can't use that dress anymore. You need to go and shop for another dress. And Grant wasn't wanting to come with me, so I went down the town on my own. And I got the worst customer service in a shop. I'm not going to name the shop, but they were so rude, and I was so polite to them still. I was still smiling, although I was down the street shopping for a dress to bury her daughter in, basically. And I'd gone in and said, I still have, 6 of them, and can I have maybe 2 of them? And I got my change flung at me across the counter. And I was like, oh my days. And I said to them, I'm not having the greatest of days today. I said, but I've still managed to be really polite to you.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but say it. And I'm not normally one for saying something like that. But it is so true. You do not know what somebody is dealing with on that day. It could be something trivial. It could be something not trivial. But regardless, it meant something to them.
Yeah.
But I was just so blown away by it. I couldn't help myself but having to say, look, I'm having a really bad day today, but I've still managed to be nice to you.
Yeah.
So could you not throw me my change, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But it is a shining example of, you just don't know what everybody else is dealing with when they're out and about.
Yeah, it's a strange space. I don't know where the landscape of the world is going to lie in terms of, we touched upon earlier on with the mental health and how prominent it is now. But on one hand, you've got a lot of people, like we were saying there, being very cautious of how they conduct themselves, how they speak, how they approach people, thinking about other people's thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
You've got, a lot of that in that camp. But then the other hand, you've got, the complete opposite. And let's be honest, everybody, regardless of what camp you're on, everybody knows between right and wrong. See, if you're an idiot, you know you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, you know if how you're conducting yourself. But it's a strange world we're in right now. There's a lot of unprecedented times. And then we were speaking about earlier on. I don't know if you want to maybe elaborate a wee bit more about the kind of space you're trying to create for the sort of mental health.
Yeah. So the space that we want to create is very much linked to the skincare because we focus on the mind-skin connection, right? So what happens when you are anxious is a small part of your brain, the amygdala, that is responsible for kind of knocking out the alarm glass and saying, okay, tiger, fight, run. And it immediately sends a message to the hypothalamus, the other part of the brain, which releases and regulates your temperature, releases hormones. So then it goes, okay, there's trouble. I'm releasing all of these hormones to all of the major extremities, your arms, your legs, so you're ready to fight, to flight, to run. And it takes away the blood from all of the things you don't need. That's why your fingers tingle, your toes tingle. And that's why you get skin reactions, because most of your sensitive nerve endings is just beneath the first layer of skin. The blood goes away, hormones shoot up, and it creates an inflammatory response. So you get psoriasis, eczema, burning, itching, all of that. So we're focusing on that mind-skin connection. The skincare is the outer part, the space is the inner part. Why is this happening from the inside out? And I'm almost kind of apprehensive of calling it a mental health space because I feel like there is so much talk about it these days and so much misunderstanding around that. And one of the things that really, really gets me down, especially with somebody that understands this diagnosis, is the lack of responsibility people take for their own diagnosis, mental health, and how they then show up in the world and take care of that. You still have a responsibility to show up and to understand what is happening to you. So this space is more about the realness of it. I don't have a cure for you. I don't have the golden ticket that's going to take away all of this for the rest of your life. But I have walked the path and I can show you where I've stumbled and we can talk about it together and we can be in this safe space and say, you know what? I was that person today that flung that coin over the counter and I feel so bad about it, but nobody's going to judge you in this space.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what's going on with me, but I'm really just not okay. And I don't know why I can't just be okay. And that is okay. Because we don't have that space of safety where there really is true no judgment for saying how you feel and being vulnerable without anybody holding it against you after you walk away.
Yep.
And that is what this FIGGI community is all about. Many of the things that we filmed are, for example, courses we call the Breaking and Recovery. I present them, and it's literally based on my journey from childhood through diagnosis to now, and what I do on a practical level to help myself. Yes, you have therapists and you need them. Yes, maybe if your doctor says this, you need medication. But the fact is, you're with your therapist for 50 minutes a week. What do you do when you leave? You are alone with the night terrors when everybody else is sleeping and you can't breathe. You're the one stuck at home with agoraphobia while everybody else goes to work and their lives go back to normal. What do you do to get through that? Because somehow you're going to have to survive it. You're going to have to walk through that fire. So what are the things that I've done that help me get to an equilibrium so that I can continue on this healing path? And that is what this whole community is about. And that's what the story is about. And I hope that people would find a home here.
I absolutely
Love it.
love that. I love it, and I
yeah.
love what you're creating, and I truly believe that will have the correct outcome for the individual.
Thank
Because let's be honest, right now in the UK, what is the alternative? You go to your doctor, who's going to give you no time of the day, going to give you some
Give you 5
prescription
minutes,
medication, right?
Meds.
Something I'm quite passionate about. What you put in your body, you have no idea what is
Yeah.
in that, right? And they believe that is the solution. That's absolutely not the solution. That's
It's
having
not,
a
no.
detrimental effect as opposed to
Yeah.
an uplifting effect. So I would love to see what you're doing created and scale, and
Yeah.
I think that
And that's one of the things I talk about in one of the lessons is, what do you do when you've been prescribed medication? These are the side effects I had, so this is what to expect. They're going to tell you you're not going to have side effects. You're going to have a side effect or two. Is this what you're willing to deal with? I'm not the one making the decision for you whether you take medicine or not. I'm not your healthcare provider, and I don't know what's right for you. But I can tell you that I had severe dry mouth. I had dizziness. I had trouble sleeping. It was a 2-week adjustment. Nobody told me that when I was prescribed this medication. I just came out of a diagnosis that I didn't know existed in a time we didn't speak about mental health the way we do now. I was given these tablets. Literally, the last doctor that saw me, I was in hospital. He was a gastroenterologist. It was the last test they did to me. He came in, it was one of those hospital rooms where you have the 4 beds and there's the curtain that separates you. He closed the curtain after speaking to his patient next to me. He took a box of antidepressants, literally threw them at me, and told me, you are stressed. And stress has never helped anybody. Take this and feel better. And he left.
Wow.
I was in the state where I'm thinking, I'm literally dying. If I leave this hospital, nobody's going to be able to give me oxygen. Nobody's going to bring me back to life, because that's what happens to you when you have this kind of diagnosis. So that was devastating to me. And I can just imagine so many other people going through that. You go in, you say a few things. Oh, you're depressed, you're anxious, drink this. Okay, but what does that mean? Like how much milligrams? What is this going to make me feel like? Will I be able to come off of it? What happens when I go off of it? These are the things that I didn't even know to ask my doctor. So we have a checklist on there that says, okay, these are the take this checklist with you to your psychologist. Ask them these things. Ask your psychiatrist these things, because these are the things you're going to want to know. I never knew to ask that. Another thing would be that you have the right to choose. You don't have to stick with the psychologist they give you. If you don't gel with this person, you have the right to pick somebody else. And I didn't know that. You're just stuck in this situation. You have to bare your soul to this stranger. And it's okay not to have a connection with them. You can choose somebody else. So these are the types of things that are never communicated to you that I've put into this course to help others hopefully navigate through this in a little bit of an easier way.
See, the thing is, and I absolutely love what you're doing, but when you think about it, it shouldn't take somebody like yourself
Yeah.
to do this, especially in the UK when we're paying for this
Yeah.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're paying for this service through working, through taxes, etc. You're paying for that and not given these options when you, as you said, you have a right to what you've just said there.
You've got
You
a
should
right
be
to
given
different
those options.
Yeah.
There should, it's a sad state of affairs the UK's in when somebody like yourself is having to do that when that should be there in the first place.
Well, this is then really gonna tick you off, right? I can't give you the exact percentages because I am not 100% sure I'm recalling it 100%, and I'm a research girl, so I'm not going to go there. But I can tell you that there has been a pandemic of overdiagnosis in anxiety disorders, especially in the United States over the last 5 years. They predict that the addiction on benzodiazepines, which is the calming method, the calming active ingredient in most anti-anxiety meds, is going to be a bigger crisis than some of the opioid pandemics,
Right.
because it's just so overprescribed. And the difficulty in that is that a lot of people that are going to doctors being diagnosed don't have anxiety disorders. It's a very, very specific thing that needs to be diagnosed according to the DSM-5. There are anxiety disorders is just the umbrella name. There are many different types. There's generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, panic disorder. So you need not only be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, you need to be diagnosed with the correct
With the right
one,
one, yeah.
so that you know what your triggers are, what your toolkit needs to look like. And now it's just like, oh, well, I don't want to deal with this. You look anxious. Fine, you've got an anxiety disorder. Just drink these tablets. Where most of the time, it's if you take the time to speak to the individual, like anybody in the world, are going through a hard time. Many of us go through periods of chronic stress, chronic difficulty, loss of a loved one, the ending of a marriage, the loss of a business, hormone shifts, menopause, perimenopause. That does not mean you have an anxiety disorder. It means you need a crutch for a while. You've broken your leg. You need something to help you walk for a little
bit
while
support.
until it's healed,
Yeah.
with the right support. And then you're going to be okay, because stress is normal. It's a normal hormone. It's a normal part of
Normal
life.
feeling, isn't it?
Sometimes it gets a bit out of balance. Doesn't mean you have a mental illness.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me, because this is what's being communicated, especially to the youth.
Yeah.
And it gives them that extra kind of excuse to not take
To not take
responsibility for it,
responsibility, yeah.
because you're anxious.
Yeah.
And
And
not sure.
no, it's just because you haven't been taught to feel the uncomfortable emotions. Nobody wants to feel stressed. Nobody wants to feel frustrated or angry, but it's part of
Part
the
of life.
normal human experience.
Yeah.
You know, just because
100%.
you're having a few sad days doesn't mean you're depressed.
Yeah.
Just because you're super stressed out because of something happened in your life doesn't mean you're anxious.
Doesn't mean to say you've got a mental health illness
Yeah.
either, because nobody likes the title of that either, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, it is just a question of somebody taking time to sit down and listen. And that's what people aren't very good at. You don't have, the doctors don't give you time to even tell you, you know, what's wrong with you. It took them 9 months. They were convinced that I had MS.
Oh,
When
yeah.
I was going to them, I went with a sore back, and then I had other issues came along with my balance and
Yeah.
numbness on my leg. And they done blood tests and decided, oh, you've got MS. And it's not been MS at all. It's been a slip disc in my neck.
Oh, no.
Which was present on my spinal cord.
Yeah.
So again, it's the fact that they don't have time to give you to dedicate to, like, let's get to the crux of what's actually the issue, and then we'll prescribe accordingly if there's a prescription even required, or it's maybe just a case off. Like, look, you're just having a bad couple of days.
Yeah.
Go home, chill out, try and, you know, switch off for a little while or whatever. It doesn't necessarily need a tablet every time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
It's
or a label,
yeah.
which is even worse.
It is a real sad state of affairs that we're in that space, because I think the biggest part of that is that you put your trust in professionals.
Yeah.
So
And we've been bitten there quite
yeah.
often. That's another story
Yeah,
for another day.
yeah, you know, I'm a property guy. I'm not a doctor. If I go to my GP and he tells me this is what I think's wrong with you, then I'm putting my
Full
trust
trust
in that.
in
Now,
that
maybe
person.
Of
I'm,
course, he's the specialist.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. I'm maybe a wee bit over trustworthy, right? You know, I go anywhere. something simple as like, you know, yesterday I went to the shop to buy my girlfriend flowers, and he says to me, "What for?" I said, "Listen, you're the professional, right? I trust you, right? Right? I trust you. It's for a birthday. They need to look really good, really colourful, nice bouquet. I trust you. Like, so whatever you put in front of me, I won't moan at it, right? Because I trust you. You're the professional, right? So I know some people are kind of the opposite, even the wee things. So, you know, like ask a million questions, right? But for me as an individual, but if you're the professional in that field, I'm not. So I'll let you deal with whatever you say is the outcome. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, you go back to where you're at there, go to the doctor. If they get told that, well, why would I argue with that? They're the professional. I'm not a GP. I'm not a doctor. If that's what they tell me, there's not a lot of people who are willing to challenge the
them,
system.
yeah. They're just willing to, you know, you're the professional. You'll know what you're talking about, so I'm going to listen to you wholeheartedly, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think. So
I was just a way to say, I think whilst you're saying that, it's a sad state of affairs that people like Jeanne are taking on, you know, this mindfulness in a safe space for people to go to for different, not necessarily advice, but option given. I think a lot of the fact that you've had life experience behind you and that gives you quite a bit of credibility, I think.
Yeah.
I've got 100 stories that I could, you know, share that I think if you're passing them on, not in a advisory type of way, but just highlighting that there are other options there. You don't have to take the first one. I'm not telling you not to take the first one, but there's other roads that you can go. I think life.
But it's also the cycle that we find ourselves in, right? And that, you know, in a way also goes back to what we said in the entrepreneurial space of being okay to be without and making the decisions to take it slower. Everybody wants the quick fix.
Yeah.
Oh, I can take a pill and it will make it better. Okay. I don't have to make lifestyle changes. I don't have to meditate. I don't have to be mindful. I don't, you know, and it's just not the way it works, unfortunately. Like, I honestly,
Sorry.
No.
People are taking injections just now to lose weight. What's that?
I know, I know. You're seeing this all over social media.
And
just get off your backside and get to the gym and eat healthy.
Exactly. You know, they don't want to put the work in. I think that is a big message that's coming across now, is that they I think that they're hard. A lot of them are hard worked. You know, they are putting in hard shifts at the end of the day, and they are tired and they do want a quick fix. If there's one getting offered to them, they're going to take it. It's only natural, you know, you would. But other ones aren't, you know, willing to put that work in to make it better in the long-term plan. It's the quick fix remedy that they all want.
It's very sad. I mean, and it's not the way it works. You know, I mean, even with me, like every single day, there are so many symptoms to this diagnosis: migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, agoraphobia. Like every time I have a panic attack, I go through a phase where I cannot leave the house. We have to go through the whole acclimatizing thing. My husband is a good support system, but he will give me my 3 days for my panic hangover. That's when you come down from that adrenaline high of thinking that you're going to die, that you're going crazy. You're super depressed. You can't get out of bed. You're nauseous. You have migraines. You're fatigued. You can't function. And then like the 3-day mark, he will usually tell me, okay, you have to go to the mall. And it's horrifying. I hate it because I'm convinced I'm going to die. I understand that sounds unrealistic, but that is the way your mind works. Yeah. And then I have to force myself to go to the mall alone, between people, driving cars, see that it's okay. You know, I honestly have days where I get out of bed and I feel like I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do this all over again. I don't want to fight this fight anymore. I just want to be normal. Why can't I be normal? But then I have a decision to make. Do I give in to this? Do I get the hell up and try again? No matter how hard it is, I have a husband that loves me. I have a child that loves me. I have a career I love. There are things that I can think of. I just need to do it. But I need to make that decision. He can't do it for me. No. My daughter can't do it for me. The meds can't do it for me. Yes, it's a crutch that can help you if it's the right decision for you with a good doctor that works with you for the right prescription. Yeah. But the most of it is you. I have to make sure I have protein snacks because I know one of my triggers is being hungry. I get nauseous, I get shaky, and then my mind thinks I'm having a panic attack. So that's a no. I have to exercise every day because I always have this buzzing anxiety and that releases some of it through my body. I have to do that. I have to make decisions every day about, okay, where am I? It's 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm super overwhelmed. How is that going to translate to tomorrow and the day after? I need to quit for the day. I have to do those things.
Yep.
Nobody else does that for me. And piling all of that on, like, what do you eat? I have to have an anti-inflammatory diet. I have to avoid certain things so that it doesn't trigger a migraine. If I'm not sleeping well, I need to investigate why, because that's one of my biggest triggers. It's a lot. But everybody else has their own challenges, right? It's not easy. If it was easy, all of us would be sitting here being millionaires, happy, floating on our yachts somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not the way that life works, unfortunately.
Life is tough.
Yeah.
And you're as well embracing that from the beginning, I think, and then it won't come as, the shocks won't be as shocking,
Yeah.
It's kind of preempting that journey
Yeah.
a little bit.
Listen, I think we could probably both agree. I could sit and talk
Sit
to you all
here all
day
day.
because I think I could probably sit and talk to you for the next week. I think there's so much I could get out of you personally. But unfortunately we don't. So for anybody that's listening, it's kind of one last bit of advice. If somebody's going through something as traumatic as you have, or it's something that might be deemed as insignificant, maybe want to do something, whether it's the world of entrepreneurship or achieve something in their life, and there's something holding them back within themselves, whether it is maybe a past trauma, what kind of lasting bit of advice would you say to somebody who wants to do something but don't feel that they believe that they can do it?
I would say that you need to always remind yourself your feelings are valid. You're allowed to have these feelings. You're allowed to doubt yourself, but you're also allowed to celebrate yourself. And we forget that. And that's one of the things that I struggled with the most, is understanding that it's okay to first have feelings, acknowledge those feelings, and deal with those feelings. And we don't do that enough. It's okay to have the feelings. Feel those feelings, sit with those feelings, work through those feelings, because it's when you bottle it up and you don't, that everything becomes a mess and chaos. And then you cannot distinguish one from the next. Take as long as you need to deal with those feelings. Go back to the problem. See it from a new angle when your mind is clear and you've taken off all of this load. But we don't do that. We go like, oh, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll stress about this next week. I need to make these decisions now. And it piles up and it piles up and it piles up. And you're making worse and worse and worse decisions. You're thinking about yourself in a worse and worse and worse way. So feel your feelings. It's okay.
What a way to end.
Excellent.
Listen, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Honestly, it's been really good. I've learned a lot. And thank you.